The origin of the Avesta religion. 1. What was the religion of the Magi, which we find reflected in the Avesta, and whence did it arise? Magism in its general form may be summed up as follows. The world, such as it is now, is twofold, being the work of two hostile beings, Ahura Mazda, the good principle, and Angra Mainyu, the evil principle, and all that is good in the world comes from the former, and all that is bad in it comes from the latter. The history of the world is the history of their conflict, how Angra Mainyu invaded the world of Ahura Mazda and marred it. So, creation is right in the first place, and then it gets, and how he shall be expelled from it at last. Man is active in the conflict, his duty in it being laid before him in the law revealed by Ahura Mazda to Zarathustra. When the appointed time is come, a son of the lawgiver, still unborn, named Saoshyant, will appear. Angra Mainyu and hell will be destroyed, and men will rise from the dead. And everlasting happiness will reign over the world. Well, perhaps the kingdom of Angra Mainyu, or perhaps even the punishment of people who would deserve it. Would come to an end once they paid for their crimes. We have tried in another book. We beg for the sake of brevity to refer to that book for further demonstration, to show that the religion of, Ormaz et Ahriman, published in Paris, 1877, showed that the religion of the Magi is derived from the same source as that of the Indian rishis, that is, from the religion followed by the common forefathers of the Iranians and the Indians, the Indo-Iranian religion. The Mazdian belief is therefore composed of two different strata. The one compromises all those that one would call gods. Too many different things are called. Pretty much everything metaphysical that's not human is called a god in some of these translations, so it's not really proper things. Myths and ideas which were already in existence during the Indo-Iranian period, whatever changes they may have undergone during the actual Iranian period. The other compromises what they consider to be gods, their myths and ideas, which were only developed after the separation of the two religions. Well, perhaps I should say that may be treated as gods. 2. There were two general ideas at the bottom of the Indo-Iranian religion. First, there is a law in nature, and secondly, that there is a war in nature. Well, perhaps it isn't nature that has the war, but it becomes the battleground of entities that come in that decide to go, whether to support nature or go against nature. Hence the marring by Ahriman and host. There is a law in nature because everything goes on in a serene and mighty order, days after days, seasons after seasons, years after years, come and come again. There is a marvelous friendship between the sun and the moon. The dawn has never missed its appointed time and place, and the stars that shine in the night know where to go when the day is breaking. There is God who fixed that never-failing law, and on whom it rests forever. There is a war in nature because it contains powers that work for good and powers that work for evil. There are such beings as benefit man, and such beings as injure him. There are gods and fiends. They struggle on, never and nowhere more apparent than in the storm in which, under our very eyes, the fiend that carries off the light and streams of heaven fights with the entity that gives them back to man and the thirsty earth. There were therefore in the Indo-Iranian religion a latent monotheism and an unconscious dualism, both of which in the further development of Indian thought slowly disappeared, but Mazdaism lost neither of these two notions, nor did it add a new one, and its original action was to cling strongly and equally to both ideas and push them to an extreme. 3. The God that has established the laws in nature is the heaven God. He is the greatest of gods, and since there is nothing above him or outside of him, he has made everything. Since everything is produced or takes place in him, he is the wisest of all that might be treated as gods, since with his eyes, the sun, the moon, and the stars, he sees everything. And we may say that, this God was named either after his bodily structure, his bodily nature, Varana, the all-embracing sky, known as Uranus, or Kiaus, or Zeus, or Svar, or Jupiter, or after his spiritual attributes, Asura, the Lord, Asura, Vedas, the all-knowing Lord, Asura Mazda, the Lord of high knowledge. Asura Medda, and Ahura Mazdao. 4. The supreme Asura of the Indo-Iranian religion, the heaven god, is called in the Avesta Ahura Mazda, the all-knowing Lord. This is at least the meaning that's attached to the name and the consciousness of the composers of the Avesta. And perhaps in other languages, as indicated by some of these Sanskrit terms and stuff, we, see that, the same concept would have been portrayed even if Avesta was not a language yet. Like 4,000 years ago, somebody could say, well, Avesta wasn't quite the language yet, so it's good to have these references. His concrete name, Varuna, which became his usual name in India, Varuna, was lost in Iran and remained only as the name of the material heaven, then of the mythical religion, the Varuna, which was the seat of the mythical fight between a storm god and a storm fiend. And one of the things that we have to think about, the metanomial reference, like in China, the China is the calling the chief god, or calling God heaven, referring to it in that way. People say, well, the Chinese are atheist or this. No, they weren't. The spiritual attributes of the heaven god were daily more and more strongly defined, and his material attributes were thrown further into the background, yet many features, though ever dimmer and dimmer, betray his former bodily, or rather his sky nature. He is white bright, seen afar, and his body is the greatest and fairest of all bodies. He has the sun for his eye, the rivers abode for his spouses, the fire of lightning for his son. He wears the heaven as a star-spangled garment. He puts on the hard stone of heaven. He is the hardest of all that people may treat as gods. Knowing God through the material universe is one thing. Worshipping the material universe as the embodiment of God, that's certainly something that happens. So if one culture does something and another refers to the same area, people are going to jump to a lot of conclusions, hence calling these people fire worshippers and such. He dwells in the infinite luminous space, and the infinite luminous space is his place, his body. In the time of Herodotus, Persians, while invoking Ahura Mazda, the creator of earth and heaven, still knew who he was, and called the whole vault of the sky Zeus, that is to say, called it the supreme god. And one of the things with the cuneiform text in particular is you find that a whole range of mythology upon the same terms and stuff can be represented. So therefore, if it doesn't survive as much the monotheism as the panentheism, and whether that's polytheistic or not, or other sorts of polytheism that's a dynamism or something, an absence is often not at all an indication that, oh, that type of belief never existed amongst those people. It's, 6. In the Indo-Iranian religion, the supreme Asura, although he was the supreme god, was not considered to be the only god. There were near him and within him many mighty beings, the sun, wind, lightning, thunder, rain, prayer, sacrifice, which, as soon as they struck the eye or the fancy of man, were at once turned to as if they were gods. If the heaven Asura, the greater in time and space, eternal and universal. So see the implication, at the very least, of a monotheistic, well, something that produced time and space and all that, and matter, everlasting and ever-present, was without effort raised to the supreme rank by his twofold infinitude. There were other entities of shorter but mightier life who maintained against him the right to independence. The progress of religious thought might as well have gone on to transfer power from him to any of these entities as to make his authority unrivaled. The former was the case in India in the middle of the Vedic period. Indra, the dazzling entity of storm, rose to supremacy in the Indian pantheon and outshines Varuna with the roar and splendor of his feats, but soon gave way to the new and mystic king, Prayer or Brahman.